Doohy and Kim wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the navigation screen. The cargo ship New Sol was 3 days out from Earth, carrying medical supplies to the mining colony on Kepler 4 for Tubi. It was supposed to be a simple run, the kind his crew had done hundreds of times before. "Captain, we're picking up something strange on the scanners," said HFY Parked from the navigation station. Her voice carried a note of concern that made Du-hyen look up from his coffee. "What kind of strange?" Du-hyen asked, moving to stand. Behind her chair, it's a distress signal, but it's not human. HFY's fingers danced across the control panel, bringing up the readings. The signal is coming from somewhere near the asteroid belt 7. There's a lot of debris there. Du-hyen frowned. The asteroid belt 7 was known to be dangerous. Pirates sometimes hid there, and the asteroids made navigation tricky. Most traders avoided it completely. "Could be a trap," said Bjoram Lee from the engine room through the CUM system. "Pirates have been known to fake distress signals." Taemin Choi, their communications officer, spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm getting more details on the signal. It's definitely alien. The language patterns match Valiant transmissions." Du-hyen's frown deepened. The Valiant were a warrior race with advanced technology. They rarely had anything to do with humans, and when they did, it was usually to look down on them as inferior. A Valiant ship in distress was almost unheard of. What would a Valiant ship be doing out here? HFY wondered aloud. "Nothing good," Bjoram's voice crackled through the CUM. "We should stay away from this, Captain. The Valiant have never done us any favors." Du-hyen stared at the screen showing the distress signal. It was weak and getting weaker. Whatever was out there, it was in serious trouble. He thought about the cargo hold full of medical supplies they were carrying to the colony. The colonists needed those supplies, but they could wait a few more days. "Set course for the signal," Du-hyen said finally. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Taemin asked. "We don't know what we're flying into." "Someone needs help," Du-hyen said simply. "That's all I need to know." The New Sol changed course, heading toward the debris field. As they got closer, the extent of the destruction became clear. Pieces of metal and plastic drifted in space, the remains of what had once been ships. Some pieces were still glowing from recent weapons fire. "There was a big fight here," HFY said quietly. "Multiple ships, heavy weapons. This wasn't pirates." Through the debris, they could see a single ship still intact. It was sleek and silver, clearly of Valiant design. But it was badly damaged, with holes burned through its hull, and one engine completely missing. "I'm detecting life signs," Taemin reported. "Weak, but definitely there. One individual." Du-hyen made his decision. "HFY, bring us alongside. Bjoram, prepare the docking tube. Taemin, try to establish communication." The docking process was difficult. The damaged Valiant ship was tumbling slowly, and its docking systems were offline. It took HFY 20 minutes of careful maneuvering to match the ship's rotation and connect their docking tube. "Connection established," Bjoram reported. "The ship's atmosphere is failing. We need to move fast." Du-hyen grabbed a portable oxygen tank and headed for the docking tube. "Taemin, you're with me? HFY, keep us steady." The inside of the Valiant ship was a mess. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the air smelled of burned metal and ozone. Emergency lighting cast everything in an eerie red glow. They found the alien in what looked like the command center. He was tall, even taller than Du-hyen had expected, with pale blue skin and silver hair. His uniform was torn and blood-stained, and he was unconscious. "Help me get him to the medical bay," Du-hyen said, lifting one of the alien's arms over his shoulder. Getting the wounded Valiant back to their ship was difficult. He was heavy and awkward to carry, and the docking tube was narrow. But they managed it, and soon had him laid out on the medical bed in the New Sol's small sick bay. "I don't know anything about Valiant biology," Du-hyen admitted, looking at the alien's pale face. "But bleeding is bleeding." He began cleaning the alien's wounds with their medical supplies. The injuries were severe: burns, cuts, and what looked like internal bleeding. Du-hyen used everything they had: antiseptic bandages, painkillers, and a portable blood oxygenator. Captain Bjoram's voice came through the CUM urgent. The Valiant ship's power core is destabilizing. If it explodes, it'll take us with it. Du-Hyen looked at the unconscious alien, then at the medical equipment keeping him alive. How long do we have? Maybe an hour, maybe less. The containment field is failing fast. Du-Hyen made another decision. Detach the docking tube. Get us to minimum safe distance, but not too far. We're not leaving him, Captain. His ship is going to explode, Taman said. We need to get out of here. Not without trying to save him first, Du-Hyen replied firmly. For the next hour, Du-Hyen worked frantically to stabilize the alien's condition. He had no idea if human medicine would work on Valiant biology, but he had to try. HFY assisted, holding instruments and monitoring the aliens' vital signs on their basic medical scanner. Behind them, through the ship's viewports, they could see the Valiant ship's hull glowing brighter as its power core moved toward critical failure. Whatever you're doing, do it faster, Borum called from the engine room. The energy readings are off the charts. Just as Du-Hyen finished applying the last bandage, the Valiant ship exploded. The flash of light was so bright, it overloaded their viewport filters for a moment. Shockwave rocked the new soul, but they were just far enough away to avoid serious damage. Well, that's that, HFY said quietly. The alien's eyes opened. They were bright gold and filled with confusion. He tried to sit up, but Du-Hyen gently pushed him back down. Easy there, Du-Hyen said. You're safe now. You're on a human ship. The alien stared at him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was deep and carried a strange accent. You, ... saved me. Of course, Du-Hyen said. You were in trouble. But I am Valiant. Your people and mine are not allies. Du-Hyen shrugged. You needed help. That's all that mattered. The alien, who introduced himself as Commander Veltar, was quiet for a long time. He seemed to be thinking about something important. You used your medical supplies on me, he said finally. Your ship's emergency supplies. We've got more back on Earth, Du-Hyen said. Besides, you needed them more than we did. And you risked your lives to save me. A stranger, an enemy, some would say. You're not our enemy, Du-Hyen said. You're just someone who needed help. Veltar was quiet again. Then slowly he reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. It glowed with a soft blue light. Among my people, this is called the Velkrishna, he said. It marks a sacred debt. You have saved my life without asking for anything in return. This is ... unusual. He pressed the device against Du-Hyen's forehead. There was a brief tingling sensation, and then a small blue mark appeared on Du-Hyen's skin. The Valiant do not forget such kindness, Veltar said solemnly. This mark means you and your crew are under our protection. If you ever need help, any Valiant who sees this mark will assist you. Du-Hyen touched the mark, feeling slightly embarrassed. You don't need to do that. You just did what anyone would do. Veltar's golden eyes widened. What anyone would do, he repeated. You believe this is normal behavior? Well, yeah, Du-Hyen said. Someone was in trouble, so we helped. That's what people do. For the next 2 days, as they traveled to the nearest space station, Veltar watched the human crew with fascination. He saw how they shared their food with him, how they took turns checking on his recovery, how they worked together without anyone giving orders. When they reached the station, Veltar was met by a Valiant rescue ship. Before he left, he performed a formal ceremony, thanking each member of the crew individually. I will report this to the High Command, he told Du-Hyen. What you have done today will not be forgotten. Du-Hyen smiled and shook the alien's hand. It's glad we could help. Stay safe out there. The Valiant ship departed. Taman shook his head. That was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. A Valiant actually thanking humans. Maybe they're not. So different from us, after all, HFY said. Du-Hyen returned to his captain's chair and checked their course. The mining colony was still waiting for their medical supplies, and they had lost 2 days helping the alien. But somehow, he felt good about it. Set course for Kepler-4 for to be, he said. Let's deliver these supplies. As the new soul jumped to hyperspace, none of the crew realized that their simple act of kindness had just changed the course of galactic history. They were just happy they had helped someone in need. Behind them, the Valiant rescue ship was already transmitting a detailed report to the Valiant High Command. The message would reach the capital world within hours. And soon, the entire Valiant leadership would know about the humans who had risked everything to save one of their own. But for now, Duhan and his crew were just for humans doing their job, completely unaware that they had just planted the seeds of the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever seen. 6 months had passed since the rescue, and Duhan Kim had almost forgotten about the strange blue mark on his forehead. The crew of the New Soul had returned to their normal trading routes, delivering supplies to colonies and mining stations. Throughout human space, life was good, simple, and predictable. That changed when they docked at Titan Station for refueling. Captain Taman called from the communications station, his voice filled with surprise. "We're getting a priority transmission. It's from the Valiant High Command." Duhan looked up from the supply manifest he was checking. "The Valiant High Command, are you sure?" "Yes, sir. Signals coming from Viridian Prime. They're requesting your immediate presence on their homeworld." Hay-1 whistled softly. No human has ever been invited to Viridian Prime. Ever. "Maybe it's a mistake," Bjorn suggested from the engine room. "Or maybe they want to arrest us for something." Duhan stared at the message on the screen. It was written in perfect Earth standard, and it was signed by someone called Fleet Admiral Thes Veltar. The name was familiar, but it took him a moment to remember where he had heard it before. "That's the guy we rescued," he said finally. "Commander Veltar, looks like he got promoted." The message was formal but polite. It requested Duhan and his crew to come to Viridian Prime as honored guests. It promised safe passage and said that the Valiant High Command had something important to discuss with them. "What do you think, Captain?" Hay-1 asked. "Could be dangerous?" Duhan thought about it for a moment. The Valiant were known to be honorable, even if they were proud and distant. And Veltar had seemed genuinely grateful when they rescued him. "We'll go," he decided. Set course for Viridian Prime. The journey to the Valiant homeworld took 5 days. As they approached the system, they were met by a full Valiant escort fleet. 12 sleek warships surrounded the New Soul, but their weapons were powered down and their communications were friendly. "Welcome to Viridian space," came a voice over the comm. "Please follow our lead ships to the capital." Duhan had never seen anything like Viridian Prime. The planet was covered in gleaming silver cities that seemed to grow from the ground like metal trees. Ships moved through the atmosphere in perfect formation, and massive space stations orbited. The world like artificial moons. "It's beautiful," Hay-1 whispered as they descended toward the landing pad. They were met by a full honor guard. Hundreds of Valiant soldiers in gleaming armor lined the landing pad, their weapons held in ceremonial salute. At their head stood Fleet Admiral Veltar, now wearing the gold and silver uniform of High Command. "Welcome to Viridian Prime," Veltar said, as Duhan and his crew stepped off their ship. "You honor us with your presence." Duhan felt uncomfortable. "With all the ceremony, Admiral, this is all very impressive, but we're just cargo haulers. We don't need all this fuss." Veltar's golden eyes seemed to shine with amusement. "That Captain Kim is exactly why you deserve it." They were escorted to the council chamber, a massive dome in the heart of the capital city. Inside the council of swords was waiting. 12 of the most powerful Valiant in the galaxy sat in a circle, their faces serious and formal. "Honored humans," said the council leader, an ancient Valiant with silver hair and scars on his face. "We have called you here to discuss a matter of great importance." Duhan and his crew sat in the center of the circle, feeling very small and out of place. The council leader gestured to Admiral Veltar, who stepped forward. 6 months ago, these humans saved my life," Veltar began. "They risked their own safety to rescue me from certain death. They used their medical supplies, their time, and their ship's resources to help a stranger. They asked for nothing in return." The council members nodded solemnly. This was clearly not news to them. "But there's more," Veltar continued. "The quantum drive data that Engineer Lee helped me save contained crucial intelligence about Kresh Empire movements. This information allowed us to discover and prevent a massive surprise attack on our colonies. Duhayan blinked in surprise. We didn't know about any intelligence data. Of course you didn't, Veltar said. You saved me because it was the right thing to do. You didn't care about military secrets or strategic advantages. You simply saw someone in need and helped them. Council leader stood up. Because of your actions, 3 of our colonies still exist. Millions of Valani lives were saved. This is not a debt that can be repaid with money or trade agreements. He walked to the center of the circle and pulled out an ancient ceremonial blade. The Council of Swords hereby declares that humanity has earned the Velkrishna, the sacred debt. The sacred debt has been invoked only twice in our 10,000-year history, another council member explained. It means that the entire Valani Empire is bound by honor to assist humanity in their time of greatest need. Duhayan stood up, feeling overwhelmed. Council leader, we appreciate this honor, but we don't want anything from you. We just did what anyone would do. The council chamber fell silent. The Valani stared at Duhayan as if he had said something shocking. What anyone would do? The council leader repeated slowly. You believe this behavior is normal for your species? Yes. Duhayan said. If someone needs help, you help them. That's basic human nature. The council members looked at each other with expressions of amazement. Admiral Veltar stepped forward again. Captain Kim, I have spent the last 6 months studying your species. What I've discovered is ... remarkable. He activated a holographic display that showed images and data about humans. Your people routinely risk their lives for strangers. You share resources during disasters. You show mercy to your enemies. You help others even when it costs you greatly. More images appeared. Human rescue workers saving aliens during natural disasters. Human doctors treating wounded enemy soldiers. Human traders sharing their food with starving colonies. This is not normal behavior, Veltar said.
No species.
Help their allies, their families, their trade partners. But humans help anyone who needs it. You are the only species we have encountered that shows kindness without expecting anything in return. Hayone spoke up. But that's just being decent. How else are you supposed to treat people? Most species treat others based on what they can gain from them, the council leader explained. The strong dominate the weak. Allies help allies. Enemies destroy enemies. But humans... Humans help everyone. Borum shook her head. That doesn't make sense? If you don't help people when they need it, what kind of society do you have? The council members exchanged glances again. It was clear that the human way of thinking was completely foreign to them. We offer you advanced technology, the council leader said. Star charts to rich mining systems, exclusive trade agreements, military protection. What would you like in return for your service to our empire? Duhayan looked at his crew, then back at the council. We don't want anything. We just helped someone who needed help. That's what you do. Time the silence. In the chamber was profound. Several of the council members were staring at the humans with what looked like awe. Admiral Veltar finally spoke. This is why the sacred debt exists. Some actions are so pure, so selfless, that they cannot be repaid. They can only be honored. What? We don't understand, Taemin said. You're acting like we did something amazing. We just pulled a guy out of a wrecked ship. You saved the life of a stranger from a species that has never shown you kindness, Veltar replied. You risked your own lives and used your own resources to help someone who could never repay you. When we offer you rewards, you refuse. This is not normal behavior. This is heroic behavior. The council leader raised his ceremonial blade. The sacred debt is declared. The Valani Empire will remember this kindness. In your hour of greatest need, we will answer. As the ceremony concluded, Duhayan felt more confused than honored. To him and his crew, they had just done what any decent person would do. The idea that this was somehow unusual or heroic was hard to understand. Later, as they prepared to leave Viridian Prime, Admiral Veltar walked them back to their ship. Admiral Duhayan said, "Can I ask you something? Why is helping people so unusual? Don't the Valani help each other?" Veltar considered the question carefully. We help our families, our clans, our empire. But we do not help strangers without reason. We do not help enemies. Do not help those who cannot benefit us. This is normal for most species. But that's terrible, Hay1 said. What happens to people who have nobody to help them? They suffer, Veltar said simply. They die. This is the way of the galaxy. Duhayan shook his head. That's not the way it should be, no, Veltar agreed. It is not. And that is why your species is so remarkable. You show us a better way. As the new soul departed from Viridian Prime, none of the crew realized that their visit had already set bigger events in motion. Admiral Veltar was not just studying human behavior out of curiosity. He was documenting it, cataloging it, and preparing a report that would change the galaxy forever in the depths of space. The Kresh Empire's intelligence networks had detected the unusual Villani fleet movements around human space. They were beginning to investigate what could make the proud Villani show such interest in an inferior species. The ripples from a simple act of kindness were spreading across the galaxy, and soon they would become a tidal wave that would reshape the destiny of countless worlds. But for now, Duhayan Kim and his crew were just heading home, still wondering why helping someone in need was considered so remarkable. 3 years had passed since the visit to Viridian Prime. Duhayan Kim and his crew had settled back into their routine of trading runs and cargo deliveries. The only reminder of their encounter with the Villani was the blue mark on Duhayan's forehead, which seemed to make other aliens treat them with unusual respect at space stations. What they didn't know was that Admiral Veltar had been busy, very busy. In his private office on Viridian Prime, Admiral Veltar studied the massive wall display, showing thousands of files and reports. Each one documented an act of human kindness, courage, or sacrifice. He had been collecting these stories for 3 years, and the pattern was clear and consistent. Computer, show me the latest reports from the observation teams, he said new. Files appeared on the screen. Human medical team had risked their lives to save alien colonists during a plague. Its outbreak on Rigel 7. Human traders had shared their food supplies with a starving Altarian convoy. A human rescue ship had pulled survivors from a crashed Sindari vessel, even though the Sindari had fired on them first. Every single time, Veltar muttered to himself, they help without asking questions, they save enemies, they sacrifice for strangers. His assistant, a young Villani officer named Kess, entered the office. Admiral, we have received the intelligence report you requested about the Kresh Empire movements. Veltar took the datapad and read it quickly. His golden eyes widened with alarm. How certain are we about this information? Very certain, sir. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive fleet movements in Kresh space. They are gathering ships from across their empire. Where are they headed? Toward human space, sir. All of it. Veltar felt his blood run cold. The Kresh Empire controlled a third of the galaxy and had technology that was centuries ahead of human capabilities. If they were planning an attack on humanity, it would be a massacre. Why would the Kresh attack humans? Kess asked. Humans have never threatened them. Their technology is primitive. Their military is weak. Veltar looked at the wall display showing all the human kindness. Reports because they see what I see. They recognize that humans are different, and that difference terrifies them. Far from Viridian Prime, on the industrial world of New Geneva, Dr. Yunji Kong was working late in her laboratory at the Seoul Institute of Galactic Studies. She was a xenobiologist who studied alien cultures and behaviors. Her research had been focused on understanding why humans seem to get along better with some alien species than others. Her computer chimed, indicating an incoming message. The sender was listed as unknown source, and the message was heavily encrypted. Dr. Kong frowned and ran the message through her decryption software. When the text appeared on her screen, she nearly fell out of her chair. Warning: massive Kresh invasion fleet approaching human space. Estimated arrival in 14 days. Fleet size: approximately 50,000 ships. Target: complete extermination of human species. Advise immediate evacuation of all human colonies. The message was signed with a symbol she didn't recognize, but at the bottom was a name: Fleet Admiral Thesveltar. Dr. Kong stared at the message for a long moment, then quickly began making copies and sending them to every government official and military leader she could think of. If this was real, Humanity was about to face the worst crisis in its history. The message reached the United Earth Defense Force headquarters within hours. Captain Jae-Sung Moon was in the middle of a routine staff meeting when the emergency alert came through. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're getting reports of a massive alien fleet approaching our space. The source claims it's from the Kresh Empire." Captain Moon read the message and felt his heart sink. The Kresh Empire was one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. Their ships were huge, their weapons were devastating, and their tactics were ruthless. Humanity's defense force was tiny compared to what they were facing. "How reliable is this intelligence?" he asked. "Unknown, sir, but long-range sensors are picking up unusual energy signatures at the edge of our detection range. Something big is coming." Within hours, the news had spread to every human colony and outpost. Panic began to set in as people realized they were facing complete annihilation. The human military had maybe 3,000 ships, and most of them were small patrol vessels or cargo haulers with basic weapons. On Earth, the Emergency Defense Council met in an underground bunker beneath Geneva. The room was filled with generals, politicians, and scientists, all trying to figure out how to survive the coming storm. "We need to evacuate as many people as possible," said General Hayes, the head of Earth Defense. "Get them to the outer colonies. Spread them out." "There's nowhere to run," replied Admiral Chen. "If the Kresh want us dead, they'll hunt us down wherever we go." Dr. Kang spoke up from her seat at the back of the room. "Maybe we should try to contact whoever sent us this warning. If they're willing to help us, we might have a chance." "You mean trust aliens?" General Hayes asked. "How do we know this isn't a trap?" "Because," Dr. Kang said, "if they wanted to destroy us, they wouldn't need to warn us first. They could just do it." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Kresh invasion fleet continued its relentless advance toward human territory. General Krex Volume stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display show the positions of his 50,000 ships. "Status report," he ordered. "All fleets are in position, General," his aide replied. "We will reach human space in 10 days. Good, and our intelligence about human capabilities confirmed, sir. They have approximately 3,000 ships, mostly small and lightly armed. Their technology is primitive. This will be a simple extermination mission." General Krexvalm nodded with satisfaction. The Kresh had been expanding their empire for centuries, crushing any species that stood in their way. Humans should have been no different, but recent intelligence reports had suggested they might become a problem. "Sir," his aide continued, "our analysts are still unclear about why the High Command considers humans a threat. They appear to be weak and divided." "The High Command has their reasons," Krexvolume said. "I have seen the reports. Humans have a dangerous trait. They inspire others to help them. They make allies where they should make enemies. If we let them continue to spread this ... infection ... it could destabilize the entire galaxy." Viridian Prime, Admiral Veltar, was preparing for the most important meeting of his career. He had called an emergency session of the Council of Swords, and he had evidence that he hoped would convince them to act. "Honored Council," he began, "I have discovered something that threatens not just humanity, but the entire galaxy." He activated the holographic display showing the approaching Kresh fleet. The Kresh Empire has assembled the largest invasion force in galactic history. Their target is the complete extermination of the human species. The council members looked at the display with interest but not alarm. "The fate of humans is not our concern," said the council leader. "We have the sacred debt, but this is not their hour of greatest need. This is simply war." "But it is more than that," Veltar insisted. "The Kresh are not attacking humans for territory or resources. They are attacking them because they fear what humans represent." He changed the display to show his research files. "For 3 years, I have documented human behavior. They are the only species in the galaxy that shows unconditional kindness. They help anyone who needs help, regardless of species, alliance, or benefit." "We know this," another council member said. "It is why we declared the sacred debt." "But don't you see?" Veltar said urgently. "This trait is spreading. Other species are beginning to copy human behavior. The Altarians have started helping. Refugees, the Sundari, are sharing technology with smaller species. The crystalline hegemony has stopped enslaving primitive worlds. The council leader's eyes narrowed. You're saying that human behavior is influencing other species? Yes, and the Kresh see this as a threat to their way of life. They build their empire on domination and fear. If other species start acting like humans, helping each other instead of fighting, the Kresh empire will collapse. The chamber fell silent as the council members considered this. Finally, the council leader spoke. You are asking us to go to war with the Kresh empire to save a species that has nothing to offer us except moral examples? I am asking you to save the one thing that could change the galaxy for the better, Veltar replied. If humans die, their gift dies with them. The galaxy will go back to being a place where only the strong survive and the weak suffer. The council leader looked at the other members. We will consider this. But the sacred debt requires that humanity face their greatest need. If they cannot survive this test, then perhaps they are not worthy of our protection. As the meeting ended, Veltar felt a growing sense of urgency. The Kresh fleet was getting closer every day, and humanity was completely unprepared for what was coming. The galaxy was about to lose something precious, and he was running out of time to save it. In human space, Captain Moon was doing his best to prepare for the impossible. His small fleet was gathering at strategic points, ready to make their last stand. But everyone knew the truth. When the Kresh arrived, it would be over quickly. The storm was coming, and humanity was about to face its darkest hour. The Kresh invasion began exactly as predicted. Their massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of human territory, like a dark cloud blocking out the stars. 50,000 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever built. Captain Jae-Sung Moon stood on the bridge of the UEDF flagship Incheon, watching the tactical display with growing horror. His small fleet of 300 ships was positioned near Proxima Station, humanity's first line of defense. Behind them, civilian transports were evacuating as many people as possible from the outer colonies. They're not even trying to communicate, reported his communications officer. No demands, no warnings, just attacking everything they see. The first wave of Kresh ships smashed through the outer defense posts like they were made of paper. Human fighters tried to intercept them, but the Kresh weapons were too advanced. Ship after ship disappeared in brief flashes of light. All ships. Engage the enemy, Captain Moon ordered, knowing it was hopeless but refusing to give up. The battle was brutal and one-sided. Human ships fought with desperate courage, but they were completely outmatched. The Kresh vessels were armored like fortresses and armed with weapons that could destroy. A human ship with a single shot, Captain Moon watched helplessly as his fleet was systematically destroyed. The destroyer Busan exploded after taking a direct hit. The cruiser Daegu was cut in half by a Kresh energy beam. One by one, his ships were dying. Sir, his tactical officer called out, the Kresh flagship is moving toward us. Their main guns are charging. Moon looked at the massive Kresh ship approaching his position. It was 10 times the size of the Incheon, bristling with weapons and armor. In a few minutes, it would be close enough to destroy them with ease. Prepare to ram, Moon ordered. If we're going to die, we'll take some of them with us. The crew of the Incheon prepared for their final charge. They had no hope of victory, but they would not surrender. As the ship turned toward the Kresh flagship, Moon closed his eyes and thought of Earth. Of the billions of people who would die when the Kresh finished their work, then space around them exploded with new arrivals. Ships began appearing from hyperspace in massive numbers. But these weren't human ships or Kresh reinforcements. They were alien vessels from dozens of different species, all converging on the battle zone. The first to arrive was a fleet of Silver Vallani warships, their weapons already firing at the Kresh forces. Behind them came the Golden Shield ships of the Altarian Republic, their defensive screens protecting the damaged human vessels. What's happening? Moon's tactical officer shouted over the noise of battle. Before anyone could answer, more ships arrived. The mysterious Sundari collective emerged from their hidden space with vessels that seemed to bend reality around them. The ancient Proteans, who hadn't been seen in living memory, appeared with ships that glowed with inner light. The Kresh General Krex volume stared at his tactical display in complete shock. How is this possible? These species are enemies of each other. They have been at war for centuries. Sir, his aide reported, we're receiving transmissions from the alien fleets. They're all saying the same thing. They're here to protect humanity. More. Ships kept arriving. The crystalline vessels of the hegemony appeared like living jewels in space. The storm ships of the Zephyrians rode waves of controlled lightning. Even the feared Voidwalkers emerged from dark space, their black ships like holes in reality itself. This is impossible, Krex Volume muttered. Why would they unite for such a primitive species? His question was answered when Admiral Veltar S. The voice came over the communications channel, broadcast to both fleets. General Krex Volume of the Kresh Empire, you have made a grave error. You have chosen to destroy the one species in the galaxy that shows true kindness to all others, the Valiant. Fleet moved into attack formation, their weapons locked onto the Kresh ships. Behind them, the other alien fleets did the same. We have studied humanity for years, Veltar continued. They are the only species that helps others without expecting anything in return. They save enemies, heal strangers, and sacrifice for those who cannot repay them. This is not weakness. It is the rarest strength in the universe. General Krex Volume opened a channel to respond. You risk everything for a species that offers you nothing. They are weak, primitive, and useless. Why do you protect them? Because they showed us something we had forgotten, came a new voice. Was the Altarian Prime Minister, speaking for his peaceful republic. They reminded us that helping others is not a sign of weakness, but of true civilization. Another voice joined the conversation. They saved our colony ship when we were enemies, said the Sindari collective leader. They gave us food and medicine when we had tried to destroy them. We have never forgotten this kindness. One by one, the leaders of the alien fleet spoke. Each one told a story of human compassion, of help given freely to strangers and enemies. Alike, the crystalline hegemony told of human doctors who had risked their lives to treat their people during a plague.
Oh yes.
The Zephyrians spoke of human traders who had shared their supplies during a famine. You see, Admiral Veltar said, humanity has done something remarkable. They have inspired others to be better than they were. Species that have been enemies for millennia are now working together, all because humans showed them a different way. Captain Moon listened to these testimonies with growing amazement. His small human fleet was surrounded by the most powerful armadas in the galaxy, all united in their defense. This is why you fear them, Veltar continued, addressing the Kresh General. Not because they are strong, but because they make others strong. They don't conquer through force, they win through kindness. And that terrifies you. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The combined alien fleets didn't just fight the Kresh, they destroyed them with a fury that shocked even the humans they were protecting. The Valiant ships struck with precision and honor. The Altarian shields protected everyone while they're hidden. Weapons devastated the Kresh flanks. The Sindari bent space itself to trap Kresh ships in impossible positions. The Proteans unleashed ancient weapons that turned matter to energy. General Krex Volume found his massive fleet crumbling around him. Ships that had conquered 100 worlds were being torn apart by enemies that had forgotten their own conflicts to unite against a common threat. Sir, his aide reported, we're losing on all fronts. The alien alliance is too strong. We need to retreat. There was nowhere to run. The alien fleets had surrounded the entire Kresh force. Every escape route was blocked by ships that had traveled across the galaxy to be here. How did they coordinate this? Krex Volume demanded. How did they know to come here? I can answer that, came Admiral Veltar's voice. For 3 years, I've been documenting human kindness. Every species they helped, every life they saved, every act of compassion they showed, I recorded it all. When I learned of your attack, I sent copies of these records to every government in the galaxy. The truth hit Krex Volume like a physical blow. The humans hadn't built this alliance through politics or force. They had earned it through simple kindness, one act of compassion at a time. You still don't understand, Veltar said sadly. This isn't about human technology or military power. It's about something far more valuable. They showed us that the strong can choose to help the weak instead of crushing them. that enemies can become friends through understanding, that the universe doesn't have to be a place where only the cruel survive. The Kresh flagship was now surrounded by ships from a dozen different species, all united in purpose. For the first time in his military career, General Krex Volume felt true fear. "What do you want?" he asked. "We want you to understand," Veltar replied. "Look around you. See what humanity has accomplished. They didn't build this alliance through conquest or threat. They built it through kindness. They made the galaxy a better place simply by being in it." On the bridge of the Ancient Captain, Moon watched in amazement as the greatest military force in galactic history fought to protect his small fleet. Ships that had been enemies for centuries were working together perfectly, all because humans had shown them a different way to live. "Captain," his communications officer said, "we're getting messages from across the galaxy. More fleets are arriving. Every hour, they're all coming to help us." Moon looked out at the stars, now filled with ships from species he had never even heard of. All of them were here for one reason, because humanity had shown them that kindness was not weakness. But the greatest strength of all, the battle was turning into a rout. But General Krexvallen was beginning to understand that this was about more than military victory. This was about the future of the galaxy itself. And humanity had already won that battle through simple acts of compassion. The age of conquest was ending, and the age of cooperation was about to begin. The battle was over. The mighty Kresh fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was scattered and broken. Most of their ships were destroyed, and the survivors were surrounded by the largest alliance in galactic history. General Krex Volume stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. His officers were silent, waiting for orders that would never come. The great Kresh Empire had been defeated not by superior technology or numbers, but by something they had never encountered before. Unity born from kindness? "Sir, his communications," the officer said quietly. "The human flagship is requesting permission to board." Krex Volume almost laughed. The humans, whose entire fleet could have been destroyed by a single Kresh battleship, were asking permission to board his ship. After everything that had happened, they were still being polite. "Let them come," he said. "I want to see these creatures that have turned the galaxy upside down." Captain Jae-Sung Moon stepped through the airlock of the Kresh flagship with a small team of his officers who was unarmed and carried medical supplies instead of weapons. Behind him came Dr. Yoonji Kung, who had insisted on joining the boarding party. The Kresh crew watched them with a mixture of fear and confusion. These humans looked so small and fragile compared to the massive Kresh warriors. It was hard to believe that such weak creatures could inspire such devotion from the galaxy's most powerful species. They found General Krex Volume in his command center, slumped in his chair with a deep wound in his shoulder. His armor was cracked and his breathing was labored. "You're hurt," Captain Moon said, stepping forward with the medical supplies. Krex Volume tensed, expecting some kind of trick or torture. Instead, Captain Moon knelt beside him and began examining the wound. "Dr. Kang, can you help him?" Moon asked. The xenobiologist opened her medical kit and began treating the Kresh general's injuries. Her movements were gentle and professional, showing no fear or hatred toward the being who had tried to exterminate her entire species. "Why are you doing this?" Krex Volume asked, his voice weak from pain and confusion. "Goes you're hurt, Moon," replied simply. "That's what you do when someone is hurt. You help them." Krex Volume stared at the human captain in amazement. "I came here to destroy your species. Would have killed every human in the galaxy without hesitation. And you, you tend to my wounds?" "Yes," Dr. Kang said, applying a healing patch to his shoulder. "That's what decent people do." The Kresh general fell silent, his mind struggling to process what was happening. In his long military career, he had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed countless species. Never once had an enemy shown him mercy or kindness. A new voice came from the airlock. "General Krex Volume, may I enter?" It was Admiral Veltar, accompanied by several other alien leaders. They walked into the command center without weapons, just as the humans had done. "I have brought representatives from the Alliance," Veltar said. "They wish to speak with you." The Altarian Prime Minister stepped forward. General, we want you to understand what has happened here. This battle was not about conquest or revenge. It was about protecting something precious. What could be so precious about such weak creatures? Krexvalum asked, gesturing at the humans. The Sindari collective leader answered, 3 years ago, our exploration ship was damaged in a spatial storm. We were stranded in human space, expecting to die. A human cargo vessel found us and rescued our crew. They shared their food, their medicine, their resources. They asked for nothing in return. That is impossible, Krexvalum said. You are their enemies. Why would they help you? Because that is what humans do, the crystalline hegemony representative said. They help anyone who needs help, regardless of species or alliance. We have all experienced this kindness. One by one, the alien leaders told their stories. The Zephyrians spoke of human traders who had shared their supplies during a famine. The Proteans told of human doctors who had risked their lives to treat their people during a plague. The Void Walkers described human rescue teams who had saved their children from a collapsing station. Every species in this alliance has been touched by human compassion, Admiral Veltar explained. They didn't build this alliance through force or politics. They earned it through simple acts of kindness. Dr. King finished treating Krexval's wounds and stepped back. How do you feel? She asked. The Kresh general moved his arm experimentally. The pain was gone, and the wound was healing cleanly. Better, he admitted. Thank you. You're welcome, she said with a smile. That smile broke something inside Krexvalum. He had spent his entire life believing that strength came from domination. That survival required crushing the weak. But here was a member of a species he had tried to exterminate, smiling at him with genuine warmth after healing his wounds. I don't understand, he said, his voice cracking. You should hate me. Should want revenge? Captain Moon sat down across from him. General, can I ask you something? Why did you want to destroy humanity? Because you are weak, Krexvalum said automatically. The weak must be eliminated so the strong can survive. But look around you, Moon said. The strongest species in the galaxy are united to protect us. How can we be weak if we inspire such loyalty? Krexvalum looked at the alien leaders surrounding him. These were the representatives of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, and they were all here because of humanity. I studied your species. For 3 years, Admiral Veltar said. I documented thousands of acts of human kindness. You help enemies, save strangers, and sacrifice for those who cannot repay you. This is not weakness. It is the greatest strength in the universe. But strength comes from conquest, Krexvalum protested weakly. From domination and fear, does it? Dr. King asked. Look at what we've accomplished. We've united species that have been enemies for millennia. We've created the largest alliance in galactic history. We've inspired others to be better than they were. We did it all without firing a shot in anger. The truth hit Krexvalum like a physical blow. The humans had achieved what the Kresh Empire had failed to do in centuries of conquest. They had united the galaxy not through fear, but through love. You're right, he said quietly. I was wrong. We were all wrong. He stood up slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. Then, to the amazement of everyone present, the great Kresh general knelt before the human captain. I surrender, he said. Not just my fleet, but myself. I have seen what true strength looks like, and I am not worthy of it. Captain Moon helped. Him to his feet, General. You don't need to kneel. You just need to understand. I do understand, Krexvalum said. For the first time in my life, I understand. You didn't defeat us with weapons or tactics. You defeated us with something we had. Never encountered before compassion, Admiral Veltar stepped forward. General, I want to show you something that will change your perspective forever. He activated a holographic display that showed scenes from across the galaxy. Human medical teams treating alien refugees. Human traders sharing supplies with starving colonies. Human rescue workers pulling survivors from burning ships. This is what humanity does every day, Veltar explained. They help others without expecting anything in return. They show kindness to enemies, mercy to the defeated, and compassion to the suffering. But why? Krexvalum asked. What do they gain from this? Nothing, Dr. Kong said. That's the point. We help because it's the right thing to do, not because we expect rewards. The Kresh general stared at the display, watching humans risk their lives for strangers and enemies alike. Slowly, he began to understand what had happened to his empire. We built our civilization on the idea that only the strong deserve to survive, he said. But you've shown us that true strength comes from helping others, not crushing them. It's not too late to change, Captain Moon said. Your people can learn a different way. The Krex volume looked around the room at the alien leaders who had united to protect humanity. What happens to the Kresh Empire now? It depends on you, Admiral, Veltar said. You can choose to continue the old ways of conquest and domination, or you can choose to learn from humanity and build something better. The Kresh general was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at Captain Moon and Dr. Kang, the humans who had shown him mercy when he deserved none. I choose to learn, he said. I want to understand how to build a civilization based on kindness instead of cruelty. Then you're welcome to join us, Moon said, extending his hand. Krex volume took the human's hand and shook it. I don't know how. To be kind, he admitted. My people have forgotten how to show mercy. That's okay, Dr. Kang said. We'll teach you. It's what we do. As the news of the Kresh surrender spread across the galaxy, something remarkable began to happen. The greatest military alliance in history was transforming into something even more powerful. A coalition of species united not by fear or necessity, but by the simple desire to make the universe a better place. The age of conquest was ending, and the age of compassion was about to begin. And at the center of it all were the humans, who had shown the galaxy that the greatest strength was not in destroying your enemies, but in turning them into friends. Part 5. The revelation, the battle was over. The mighty Kresh fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was scattered and broken.
Oh.
Most of their ships were destroyed, and the survive? 1 year had passed since the great battle that changed the galaxy forever. The space around Earth was now filled with ships from hundreds of different species, all working together in harmony. What had started as a desperate defense had grown into the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history, Duhaon. Kim stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Council station, watching the constant stream of ships arriving and departing. He still couldn't believe how much had changed since that day when he rescued a single alien from a wrecked ship. Ambassador Kim, said a familiar voice behind him. The council is ready for your speech. Duhaon turned to see Admiral Veltar approaching. The Valiant officer had become one of his closest friends during the past year, helping him navigate the complex world of galactic politics. I still can't believe they want a simple cargo captain to speak at the council, Duhaon said with a nervous laugh. You are no longer a simple cargo captain, Veltar replied. You are the human who started all of this. Your single act of kindness changed the destiny of the galaxy. They walked together toward the council chambers, passing aliens from dozens of species working side by side. Valiant engineers helped Altarian technicians repair a damaged ship. Kresh workers unloaded medical supplies alongside human volunteers. Everywhere Duhaon looked, he saw cooperation where there had once been conflict. The council chamber was packed with representatives from over 300 species. At the center sat the newly formed Galactic Compassion Council, with humans holding key positions not because they demanded them, but because the other species insisted they were needed. Dr. Yunji Kong had been appointed as the first director of interspecies relations. Her job was to help different species understand each other and resolve conflicts peacefully. She had become the most respected diplomat in the galaxy. Not through political skill, but through simple kindness and understanding. Captain Jae-Sung Moon, now Admiral Moon, oversaw the Galactic Peace Fleet. Instead of weapons and warships, his fleet consisted of rescue vessels, medical ships, and supply transports. Their job was to help anyone in need, regardless of species or location. The most remarkable transformation was General Krex volume. The former destroyer of worlds had become the Kresh representative on the council, spent his time traveling the galaxy, teaching other species how to replace violence with cooperation. His own people had followed his example, transforming from conquerors into protectors. Friends, Du Haiyan began as he stepped to the podium. A year ago, I was just a trader trying to make a living. Today, I stand before the greatest alliance in galactic history. How did this happen? He gestured to the diverse crowd of aliens listening to his words. It happened because we remembered something simple. We remembered that helping others is not weakness, but strength. We remembered that kindness is not naive, but wise. We remembered that the best way to defeat an enemy is to turn them into a friend. The crowd murmured in agreement. Many of them had experienced this transformation firsthand. I want to tell you about someone who embodies this change, Du Haiyan continued. General HFY Valiant came to our space to destroy us. He believed that strength came from conquest and domination. But when he saw humans treating him with kindness, even after he had tried to kill us, he realized he was wrong. HFY Valiant stood up in the audience, his massive form towering over the other delegates. Ambassador Kim speaks the truth. I came here as a destroyer and left as a student. Humanity taught me that true strength comes from protecting others, not crushing them. The former general had indeed changed. His military decorations had been replaced with symbols of peace. His ships now carried medical supplies instead of weapons. His soldiers had become teachers, showing other species how to resolve conflicts without violence. The transformation of the Kresh Empire shows us what is possible, Du Haiyan said. When we choose compassion over conquest, everyone benefits. When we help our enemies instead of destroying them, we gain allies. When we share our resources instead of hoarding them, everyone has enough. In the audience, Haewon Park, Bioram, Lee, and Taemin Choi sat together, still amazed by how their simple rescue mission had led to all this. They had returned to trading, but now they traveled with an escort of grateful aliens who wanted to help them in any way possible. The galaxy is changing, Du Haiyan continued. Wars that have lasted for centuries are ending. Species that have been enemies for millennia are becoming friends. Planets that once knew only suffering are now prosperous and peaceful. I was right. Across the galaxy, the effects of the human example were spreading. The Sundari Collective had opened their hidden worlds to refugees. The crystalline hegemony had stopped enslaving primitive species and started educating them instead. The Zephyrians had turned their stormships into weather control vessels, helping barren worlds become green and fertile. But we must remember, Du Haiyan said, his voice growing serious, that this change is fragile. It depends on each of us choosing kindness over cruelty, cooperation over conflict, understanding over hatred. Dr. Kang stood up to address the council. The Institute for Compassionate Sciences has been studying the effects of what we call the human standard. Species that adopt human-like behaviors show increased prosperity, reduced conflict, and greater happiness among their populations. She activated a holographic display showing statistics from across the galaxy. Worlds that have embraced compassion report 90% fewer violent crimes, 60% higher economic growth. It's unprecedented levels of interspecies cooperation. Admiral Moon added his own observations. The Galactic Peace Fleet has responded to over 10,000 emergency calls this year. In every case, we found local species working together to solve problems instead of fighting over them. The culture of helping others is spreading faster than we ever imagined. But perhaps the most moving testimony came from an unexpected source. A young Kresh officer named Texvel stood up to speak. He was the son of a family that had been taught to hate and conquer, but the human example had changed him. I was raised to believe that strength meant crushing the weak, he said. But humans showed me that true strength means protecting the weak. They turned my people from destroyers into healers. They gave us a chance to become something better. The council session continued. Representatives from across the galaxy shared similar stories. The Proteans told of human volunteers who had helped restore their ancient libraries. The Voidwalkers described human engineers who had repaired their damaged dimensional gates. The Altarians spoke of human doctors who had saved their colonies. From disease, Du Haiyan listened to these testimonies with growing emotion. The simple act of rescuing Admiral Veltar had created a chain reaction of kindness that had transformed the entire galaxy. "There is something I want to announce," Duhayan said as the session neared its end. "The human government has decided to establish the Galactic Rescue Service. Any species, anywhere in the galaxy, can call for help, and we will respond. No payment required, no conditions attached. We help because it's the right thing to do." The chamber erupted in cheers and applause. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now unified in their support for this simple human principle. As the council session ended, Duhayan found himself surrounded by alien representatives, all wanting to thank him for what humanity had given them. But he remained humble, insisting that they had simply done what anyone should do. Later, as he walked through the station's corridors, Duhayan encountered a scene that perfectly captured the new galactic order. A human child was playing with alien children from a dozen different species, all laughing and sharing toys as if they had always been friends. "This is what we've really accomplished," Admiral Veltar said, joining him to watch the children play. "We haven't just prevented a war. We've created a future where children of all species can grow up together in peace." Duhayan nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. "You know, when I first rescued you, I never imagined it would lead to all this." "That's what makes it so powerful," Veltar replied. "You didn't help me because you expected a reward. You helped me because it was the right thing to do." Its simple act of kindness changed everything. As the days passed, the effects of the new galactic order continued to spread. The Galactic Compassion Accord was signed by over 500 species. The principles of helping others, showing mercy to enemies, and sharing resources became the foundation of interstellar law. Schools across the galaxy began teaching what they called human studies courses on compassion, cooperation, and conflict resolution. Children learned that their greatest strength lay not in defeating others, but in helping them. The transformation wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still species that resisted change. But for the first time in galactic history, there was hope that things could be different. There was proof that kindness was stronger than cruelty, that cooperation was more powerful than conquest. Duhayan Kim returned to Earth a changed man. He was no longer just a cargo captain, but a symbol of what humanity could accomplish when they stayed true to their values. The small blue mark on his forehead had become the most recognized symbol in the galaxy, representing the debt of honor that all species owed to human compassion. But perhaps the most important change was in the hearts and minds of countless beings across the galaxy. They had learned that strength didn't come from domination, but from service. That true victory wasn't achieved by defeating enemies, but by turning them into friends. The galaxy was still vast and full of challenges, but it was no longer a dark place where only the strong survived. It had become a place where anyone could find help when they needed it, where different species could work together for the common good, and where a simple act of kindness could change the destiny of worlds. The age of conquest was over. The age of compassion had begun. And at the center of it all was humanity, not as rulers or conquerors, but as teachers and friends, showing the galaxy that the greatest strength of all was the strength to care for others. The favor had been repaid, but in a way that no one could have imagined. Humanity had given the galaxy something more precious than technology or territory. They had given them hope for a better future, built on the simple foundation of treating others with kindness and respect. The stars themselves seemed brighter now, illuminated not by the fires of war, but by the light of understanding. The galaxy had learned that the best way to honor a debt was not to repay it, but to pass it forward, spreading kindness from world to world until the entire universe was united in peace.